Hello and welcome everybody. Thanks so much for being on tonight to learn how you can help save life on Earth. I'm Diane Dubois. I'm one of the organizers here at the Center for Biological Diversity, and I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina. And I will pass it over to my colleague Ash to introduce herself.
Thanks everyone. Probably familiar face, but I'm Ash Loth. I'm the engagement manager here at the center, and I'm based out of Oakland, California, and based actually out of my home for the foreseeable future. So before we get started, I just want to note one thing. We took out the chat feature. A lot of folks had told us that it was distracting. We agreed. So we took it out, and this also helps protect you against trolls and beefs up your security. So you can still ask questions of us through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those questions at the end.
Thanks, Ash. So next week is Endangered Species Week, which we love here at the center. This is a great time to celebrate the creatures that we love most. At least celebrate them a little extra, because really, when are we not? And as you know, here at the center, what do we do when we love something? To show our love, we fight for it. So Endangered Species Week is particularly important this year. Of course, over the last 12 months, we've seen this unprecedented attack on endangered species and the laws that protect them. But at the same time, an unprecedented number of people have felt the impact that some of the leading causes of extinction, so pollution, climate change, wildlife trade, have on our own health and our most vulnerable communities. So people are waking up, and now is our time to stop the extinction crisis in its tracks. So let's take a quick look at what we've been doing and where we're headed. Ash?
Yeah, so this year we have been speaking up. You have been speaking up against the administration using COVID-19 to roll back environmental policies. And with your help, we've already made more than 1,000 phone calls to Andrew Wheeler, administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. That means we filled up his voicemail. Then we also wrote 2,300 letters to the editor. That's amazing. And sent nearly 135,000 texts. That's awesome. Give yourselves a huge pat on the back. And I would also add that since COVID began, more than 8 more reps have actually signed on to the Pond Fin Act, including Representative Johanna Hayes from Connecticut, who was virtually lobbied by local leader Lisa Newell and her local group. So huge round of applause. That's a big, big deal, everyone. So I actually want to highlight where we've been, where we are right now, and where we're going, because we're on a trajectory to build power and to make change. These next few months are really all about restoring protections of the Endangered Species Act and restoring them from what was gutted by Trump. So as you can see here in the slide, we've already written LTEs, we've already made calls. So starting right now, we're going to build power by leading up to this summer to get the Pond Fin Act, the legislation that would restore the Endangered Species Act. We're going to get it to a House floor vote. And this will start by engaging public officials in the public eye over Twitter. And soon we'll be working on holding them accountable through virtual lobby visits, just like what Lisa did. So Diane, tell us, where does the Pond Fin Act stand today?
Yeah, so as Ash mentioned, many of you have been working hard to get co-sponsors on the Pond Fin Act, which, as we mentioned, would restore the Endangered Species Act. So this is really important. We're up to 125 co-sponsors as of this morning, and now it's time to push this to a vote. Now you might be wondering, is this realistic given the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic that is taking up most of the airtime in Congress? And to be honest, we struggled with this question too on our team. But this is actually the most important time for members of Congress to hear what we want for endangered species and the future of our planet.
Yeah, that's totally right. I couldn't agree more. You know, it is often the case that change comes in times of crisis. And with Congress working on major stimulus packages that will steer the future of our country, they really need to hear what our priorities are. And they need to know that protecting the wild and restoring the Endangered Species Act protects our health and promotes a more sustainable economy. Really, it's a win for everyone. So how are we going to get the PAW and Fin Act to a vote? Diane?
Yeah, here we go. So to get the PAW and Fin Act to a vote, we need to put the pressure on the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And we're going to do that through Twitter. We're getting creative in these times. So Twitter is one of our most effective tools for digital activism, actually. And that's because it's personal, but it's actually very public at the same time. So Twitter may sound intimidating to some of you if you've never used it before, but like usual, we've got your back. We'll send out a step-by-step guide tomorrow, and staff and volunteer mentors will be available for one-on-one support as well. And right now, I actually want to introduce one of our incredible volunteers, local leader Chase Martin. Chase is a leader from Alameda, California. She's part of our local leadership cohort with Lisa, and she's building a local organizing group. So along with folks just like you, she's taken action, she's engaged others, she's stepped outside her comfort zone to learn new skills to save life on Earth. And recently, Chase got on Twitter for the first time, so we thought she'd be perfect to have on tonight. And she's having a lot of success with it. So to say a little more about that, let me turn it over to her. Chase? Oh, you might be on mute, Chase.
Hey, everybody. I am in the East Bay, and I have about 10 or a dozen or so volunteers. And as you all know, everything had to go online. So I had all this energy, and I thought I would turn it to Twitter. And I created a website, or rather a Twitter page called Extinction Crisis. And really what I'm trying to do is amplify what the center does. If you guys want to follow it, that would be great. It's at Extinct Crisis. And I already have about 171 followers. I'm following almost 700 organizations and conservationists and wildlife photographers, anyone that I find interesting. And so I'm getting a lot of information, and it's really inspiring. I feel like I'm a part of, or have my ear to the whole environmental community. And so I'm sort of in a way traveling the world and sort of getting a degree in biology in a sense, because I'm learning about all these species all around the world. And so I really am doing a lot of tweets every day. I've gotten sort of obsessed, but it's really fun. And I make sure that when I tweet things, I use a reputable source, and I make sure that if I add any additional factual information to kind of make people even more interested in the story that I retweet or forward on, I make sure that I'm researching well. And I make sure to use hashtags, which, as everybody knows, is when you do the little hashtag symbol, and it draws people when they do searches to that particular topic. So it might be a geographical area, or it might be a particular species, or maybe it's the handle of the particular people who I want to give credit, who are involved in that particular story, like a conservationist or an organization or so forth. I want to give them their due. I wanted to tell everybody that the 4 kinds of tweets that I do, and so far I've probably tweet about a dozen times a day. I really enjoy doing it, are, I'm going to go ahead and give it an acronym, and that's under SAVE, S-A-V-E. I thought that'd be easy to tell everybody, so that S would be support. I like to amplify or support the efforts of other groups or individuals who have done things or are trying to make a difference. So I might, mention that, like, the center is getting double the money for donations right now. Or I might try to support another group who's showing, for example, the Endangered Species Coalition is going to show the Extinction Crisis documentary this Friday. The next one would be A, for advocacy, as we've all talked about how we want to try to get Nancy Pelosi's ear. Twitter is a great way to get attention of our elected leaders, or maybe even Administrator Andrew Wheeler. And so when we have a particular topic that we really want to urge them to make a change about, we want to make sure that we use their Twitter handle. A great thing to do, guys, is when you're online and you send a tweet, a petition or a message to an elected leader, you know how you get those letters back with their response? I even reuse their text right back at them to a tweet saying, thank you, And I appreciate that you have written a letter, and I use exactly what they've done in my tweet back to them. And so it really echoes this engagement. So that's A for advocacy. Then V is victory. It's really important because everyone's kind of down with a lot of negative news to celebrate the victories. I had one a couple days ago where there was an orangutan released back in the wild who successfully gave birth to a baby orangutan. People loved that story. And it could be other victories, like the center successfully litigating in court. Great victories, so I love to share those. And then the last E is education. Probably about half of my tweets are regarding, you know, things that we really want to make sure people are aware about. Species that are particularly vulnerable. A lot of scientists are coming out with reports all the time that are, you know, very, very important. And again, I make sure to reference the organizations or the source for that particular story. And sometimes I'll take a little bit of information from the article and highlight it with a quote at the beginning of my tweet to draw people in. So again, those are the kinds of tweets that I do, and I encourage everybody to go check it out. It's really fun. You really feel like you're really impressed with the community out there on Twitter. So it's a really great way to feel bolstered, to feel like, wow, there's such an amazing group of people out there making a difference.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chase. That was amazing. That acronym, incredible. And also, please do follow Chase if you're on Twitter already, because that's an incredible page too. Okay.
Thank you.
So I just want to go into maybe a little short training for those who aren't on Twitter yet here. And first of all, start by reinforcing and reiterating why Twitter is so important. So as Diane mentioned, Twitter is a super powerful organizing tool. You can interact with journalists, public figures, political leaders, other activists like Chase in real time and in public, which is unique to Twitter as a platform and why it's so important for you to add this to your repertoire of skills. Whether it's getting media coverage or pressuring your elected official, Twitter will help each one of you protect what you love. And I get a lot of questions like, what's the difference between Facebook and Twitter? Facebook is a platform to connect with your friends and family, people you already know, and Twitter is designed to connect you with people that you wouldn't otherwise meet in your day-to-day life. So think of Facebook as the private sphere and Twitter as the public sphere. Twitter isn't actually just about spouting off status updates. It's one big global chit chat, including with members of Congress. And this is why Twitter is a more powerful tool for activism and advocacy than Facebook. So now that we know what Twitter is, Diane, could you share a little bit about how folks can get started?
Yeah, so making an account is actually super simple. You'll just need to go to the website and follow the 3 steps on your screen now. For folks on the phone, that starts with choosing your handle, which is kind of like your screen name, adding your photo, and then adding some information for your bio. And that's it, you're good to go. Really quick, I'll go through some of the basic lingo to get you started too. Chase mentioned a few of these. So first is a mention. This is a way to reference or tag another user by their handle in a tweet. So this is how people who see your tweet will know exactly who you're talking to. Next is a retweet. Say you see a tweet that you strongly agree with and you want to share it. A retweet is the way to share that tweet with your own followers, so you're amplifying the message and also giving that person credit for the tweet. And finally, a hashtag. A hashtag links your tweet to a larger kind of discussion. So people can go into Twitter and search for all of the tweets with a single hashtag if they're interested in learning more about something or something like that. So this is a great way to expand your reach. And I'll pass it back over to Ash.
Yeah. So you may be wondering what makes a good tweet. Chase laid out a really great foundation here, but know that this is your chance to tell your elected officials what you think about saving life on Earth, why it's important to you, and what you want them to do about it. The only rule really is to keep it to 280 characters. So here are a couple basic guidelines. Use mentions. By mentioning specific people like your elected officials, journalists, experts, the odds that they see your conversation increase pretty dramatically. You can retweet content that you see. It'll go out to your followers. And then plus, once you start tweeting yourself, people will retweet your content. Use hashtags. They're best used for joining larger conversations. It's also a discovery tool that allows others to find your tweets. Add visuals. Wow, this is a great one. Photos, videos, GIFs. They really help your tweets stand out in people's feeds. And then finally, share links. And always include a short thought on why people should click that link. So you may also be wondering why follow other people. This is a part of the Twitterverse. Following people is actually really important for two major reasons. One, you can learn a lot by following other people's accounts that are similar to yours, not just experts or political heads. And two, in order to get followed, you have to follow. It's a really great way to get followed back by some of the accounts you showed interest in. So don't be shy, say hello. We've put actually a handful of examples of center accounts to follow in the guide, and we'll also include Chase's handle, and you'll receive all of that by email tomorrow. Okay, so now that you have the basics, we're gonna take a short quiz. I will show you questions on the screen, and then you'll answer in a poll box that appears on your screen as well. So unfortunately, if you're calling in by phone, you won't see this, but hopefully you'll get the gist of it. All right, here we go. All right, question number 1. Which one of these tweets uses both a retweet and a hashtag? Tweet number 1 or tweet number 2? And you should see a poll pop up on your screen. Again, which one of these tweets uses both a retweet and a hashtag? Folks are feverishly taking this poll. Great job, everyone. We'll give it maybe a few more seconds. All right. A few more seconds here. Fantastic. Okay, the answer, number 2. And the vast majority of people got that right. Congratulations. As you can see on tweet number 2, it says retweet up at the top left, and it also uses the hashtags no shutoffs at the bottom of the tweet. All right, let's move on to question number 2. So before we get to question number 2, just note that when you're on Twitter, you'll often see members of Congress can have both personal and official accounts, and both of those work. But when you mention them, you should at least use their official congressional account. So let's take a look at question number 2. Which of these accounts is the official Senate account for Senator Kamala Harris? So we'll launch the poll right now. Again, they're both her accounts, but one's the official senatorial account, one's her personal account. Take a peek. We'll give folks a little bit of time. Fantastic. Answers are coming in. All right, we'll give it a few final seconds here. Going once, going twice. All right. So the correct answer is number 2. Again, the vast majority of people got that right. Congratulations. You'll notice that in the second account, the handle is at Senator Kamala Harris. It links to the senatorial website, and she lists her bio as United States Senator of California instead of Mamala, for example. Great job. Okay, so let's move on to our final question. Question number 3. And this one is interpretation. Which one of these tweets do you think performed best? So we'll launch that poll right now. Take into account everything you just learned about Twitter. Take a guess. Tweet number 1, 2, 3, or 4. We'll give folks maybe a little extra time to take a look at this since there's so much on the screen. Wild guesses. Which one performed best? Answers are still coming in. People are probably scrutinizing over this. All right, we'll give folks just a few more seconds. Going once, going twice. Final answers in. All right, let's close this quiz answer. All right, so we've got answers in all categories. That's really great. But the correct answer is actually number 1, and here's why. The first tweet uses a very popular hashtag, #BorderWall, and it includes a short, compelling video of a bulldozer kind of, ramrodding through some iconic desert scenery. This actually performed best because it included a powerful visual and a very popular hashtag. And then the runners-up were actually tweet number 3. Again, used a very compelling image along with some popular hashtags, #DeepwaterHorizon. The next performing tweet was tweet number 4. Tweet number 4 used some great mentions of @Center for Biological Diversity, @Speaker Pelosi, @Senator Schumer, and a few others, and included a hashtag no shutoff, as well as a link. It's actually a lot going on in that tweet. So even though they used really awesome tactics, there's kind of a lot going on. And then most everyone got this right. Tweet number 2 actually performed the worst because it's admittedly kind of a boring tweet and there are no hashtags, no mentions, and no visuals. All right, so great job. Just as a reminder, just to bring us back, let me lay out where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. So again, right now we are tweeting at public officials, and we're basically sounding the public alarm, pressuring elected officials in the public eye, and we're really trying to up the ante for them. And that's why this week we're asking you to tweet at Speaker Pelosi to bring the Pond Fin Act to the House floor for a vote. And this is the next step to really keep the pressure up and defend the Endangered Species Act. So here are some of the sample tweets that you can say to Speaker Pelosi, and you'll find all of these tweets and more samples in the guide that you're going to get in your email tomorrow. So don't worry if you're trying to feverishly scribble them, you'll get them all tomorrow. And with that, now that you've heard why Twitter is an important tool, you've heard from a fellow center member, you've learned some of the basics, you've even previewed what the Twitterverse looks like a little bit. I want to know, who's ready to get on Twitter and take action to save life on Earth? So we're going to launch our last poll here. If you're willing to answer this call, if you're willing to build your skills, you're willing to join Lisa and Chase and pressure your elected officials and Speaker Pelosi effectively, especially during times of COVID when we're all going digital, click yes right now on the poll. You know, admittedly, we know this is really new to a lot of you. That's totally okay. If you're not on Twitter yet, no worries. We have a guide for you. We have volunteer mentors to support you. And as staff, just like always, we're here to help you every step of the way. We definitely know that it can be daunting, but we also believe in you. And we know that your commitment to save life on Earth is super strong. So click yes to sign up right now and help keep the pressure up on our elected officials. Again, for the folks on the phone, You won't see this poll, unfortunately, but you'll see a link to sign up in an email tomorrow along with the guide. So with that, I'm going to give it going once, going twice. We'll take any final signups to join us. Next step of the action. All right, and we're going to close the poll, and I'll hand it back to Diane.
Awesome. Thanks so much again to everyone who signed up. We're going to move on to questions soon, but before we get started, I just want to invite all of you to join us on Slack. Slack is our online community where you'll find upcoming actions, conversations, and one-on-one support from staff and mentors. So it's a great way to get quick answers if you have questions as you are navigating Twitter. So Griselda is going to share the link in the chat now to join us on Slack, and that will be a spot again where you can interact with staff, mentors, and other volunteers about your progress. All right, now let's move on to some questions. So again, the Q&A box is at the bottom of your screen. I see a bunch of you have already found it, and we'll try to get to as many of these as possible. All right, so let's see. I'm seeing some questions about some like safety and privacy concerns with Twitter. So I can actually answer this one. So Twitter is a secure website in that it requires a password protected account for every one of its users. It's pretty much as safe as other social media sites, and as long as you protect your password and adjust your privacy settings, which we can work with you on if needed, your account should be secure. Let's see. Kind of along those lines, does the account need to be public? Ash, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, I will answer it. And yes, your account should be public. Why? Because we're actually trying to engage our elected officials in the public sphere in order to exert pressure on them and get other people to join you to exert pressure on them. So if you haven't created a Twitter account yet and you're asked public or private, please say public.
Awesome. I'll also add, for folks who don't know, if your account is private, people will have to request to follow you, and then you'll approve it, and then they can see your tweets. So it just adds a barrier that if you mention people and your account is not public, they won't actually see it. So that's really important. Let's see. Do I need to make a separate Center for Biological Diversity Twitter account if I already have one? No, you should definitely use the one that you already have. If you are already on there, that's awesome. But definitely want to use the followers you already have and continue building that account with some of the advice that you've heard here tonight. Let's see. Should I tweet at Speaker Pelosi if I'm not a constituent? Ash, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. Again, yes, you absolutely should. And here's why. Speaker Pelosi is a Speaker of the House, which means that she has national reach. She's also the one with the keys to the car to bring the PON-FIN Act to the House floor for a vote. So even if you're not her constituent, you're still asking for something nationally relevant. And as Speaker of the House, she is beholden to you in that way. So please go ahead, use her handle, and use some of the sample tweets, or make up your own as part of the guide that we send out to you tomorrow.
All right, another question from folks who are already on Twitter. What if I don't have many followers? A few folks are wondering about their impact with that, and how can I get more? So we mentioned a few of these, but just to reiterate, following other people is a great way. I think Chase mentioned she followed like 700 people, and within a few weeks, she's already got almost 200 followers. So that is a really powerful way to build your reach. Also using hashtags so people can find you through different conversations. Tweeting often is important, and if you've had your account for a while, you'll see just maintaining the account over time will help you to build up that following gradually. And we will also, whether you're on Slack or you can communicate your Twitter handle to us, and we can help amplify too. We're all on Twitter, and other volunteers will be in there as well, and they can help share those tweets. Let's see. We have some questions about the effectiveness of Twitter, particularly around like targeting representatives, if there's data on that. Ash, you want to speak to the effectiveness a little more?
Yeah, we definitely have several questions like that coming in. Twitter is one tool in a big toolbox of lots of different tactics that we use. And the great thing about Twitter, again, is that it's in the public eye. Just like letters to the editor that many of you wrote earlier, the one big component of Twitter is actually making it public and getting others to direct their attention to what you're tweeting about. There's no fantasy. There's a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of tweets flying around. But just like any other good organizing tool, the one big component of Twitter is organizing others to join you. And that's another great component of Twitter, is retweeting hashtags and mentions in order to kind of like doggy pile onto the work that you're doing and work that other activists just like you are doing. So Chase gave lots of great examples about how she amplifies some of the work that she's doing and others, and the work that others are doing too. Twitter is also particularly effective right now, perhaps more than any other time, because most of the world is in the digital realm. Most of the world is on their computer and looking for ways to translate what they used to be able to do in the real world, in real life, into virtual spaces. And Twitter is a really great way to make your voice heard, even though it's amongst many, because that is actually where many people's attention, activists, journalists, and elected officials are really focusing right now. So the thing about Twitter is that it's an experience, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the big first thing that I would say is just start.
Awesome, thank you. It seems like there's a little bit of confusion between the difference between Twitter and Slack. So I can take a stab at that one. Slack, just so everybody knows, it's a little more private. It's center members, it's folks just like you, activists, staff, and our volunteer mentors. So this is a space to ask questions, to interact, to have conversations, but it's not public. It's more of like a messaging platform. And then Twitter, of course, is much more public. And it's not us interacting directly, if that makes sense. So Twitter is a space for your activism, and Slack is a space for support. Let's see. Is it okay to use a nickname on Twitter, or is that not good to do when writing to politicians? Ash?
Well, if you're first setting up your account, we have this and another question about using your real photo. When you're first setting up your account, it would be my personal suggestion to actually use your real name and to actually use a real photo of you. Some people choose not to do that because they're making a spoof Twitter account or whatever. But the reason why I would suggest that is because of credibility. Especially if you're talking to your representatives, or if other activists see it, they actually want to know who you are, and they actually want to be able to take you seriously, and you want to bring your most authentic self to Twitter in order to maintain your credibility and in a certain way, be able to speak authentically to the people who represent you in Congress. So my suggestion would be to use your real name. Your handle could be a nickname. That's totally fine. And to also use your real photo if you have the ability to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as you get to more like local pressuring, it helps if there's some indication of where you are in the world so that your representative can actually see and other people can see like this person is actually in this district and really cares about this issue. Let's see, is there a way to prioritize the tweets of groups like the Center in my feed so that I can quickly retweet the most important things to me? Ash?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly one thing folks find about Twitter is that there's a lot happening. And sometimes it can be a lot to filter that, to kind of walk through it. The idea of Twitter isn't actually to catch every single thing that happens at every moment or everything that one person tweets. It's really to be on the internet all at the same time, just like a chat room, and to be a part of something that's happening in real time. So what I would actually suggest is something called lists. So Twitter will, and this is a way for you to navigate your feed. And so for folks who are already on Twitter, you'll probably already have experience on this, but for folks who are new, it's actually a really awesome feature to be able to filter and kind of temper how you get news and tweets. Functions a lot like a Facebook news feed, very similar. So once you have found folks to follow, they're gonna appear in your news feed. And you can always find people by their handle, or you can always find topics by hashtags. But if your feeds become overwhelming, you'll use something called the list feature. And this tool allows you to basically curate groups of people that you want to hear from, and then sorted by topics. So for example, you may create lists to group together trusted sources or like news sources, or you may create a list for just your representatives and other political figures, or whoever. And then you don't actually have to see all of the messages side by side in one mixed up stream. You actually get to focus on, say, one congressional member or one topic. For example, perhaps maybe the congressional member or the topic that you just tweeted about. So that is explained in the guide that you'll all get tomorrow. And when you get on Twitter and you're still feeling a little overwhelmed, you still have staff and volunteer mentors to help you along. Again, like the biggest part of Twitter is just going for it. Yeah, Diane?
Awesome, thanks, Ash. Let's see, I read the New York Times every day and I've never heard about the Paw and Fin Act. What gives? I love this question. This is exactly why we're here. So we talked earlier about our hesitancy to even target members of Congress. Is it really worth it right now? Everything's about COVID. And this is exactly why, because we're not hearing about these things and they need to be high priorities right now. This is such a critical time for endangered species, and that's why we're going to use Twitter to amplify this message and make sure that everyone hears about the Paw and Fin Act and fights to get it passed. Okay, I'm seeing a few questions about Twitter. Does it expose people to negative messaging from people who disagree with them? Some concerns about the danger of putting yourself out there, and just kind of needing advice about do people reply to those, or is it better to just ignore it? Ash, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you for those. I definitely can hear some hesitancy, some trepidation in that. And I just want to reflect back at people, like, especially if this is new to you, there are a lot of horror stories out in the world about trolls. And certainly we wouldn't want to, we don't want people to have bad experiences. Realistically, the vast majority of people never necessarily have to come into contact like that, particularly if you're new to Twitter. Definitely there are, if you want to find people who disagree with you, you can find people who disagree with you pretty easily. But for starters, you kind of have the benefit of like of beginner's luck. Especially since most of what you're going to be tweeting about is really directed at elected officials. You'll probably be doing a lot of retweets of links that you found interesting. And you'll probably just be getting your feet wet following other people, replying to things, hashtags. If a particular question about if someone wants to argue with you, is it better to engage them or ignore them? And I would actually just go back to some of the center's basic principles about engagement, which is it's actually better just not to engage them at all, because we want to remain positive. We want to remain professional. And also it just doesn't really bring anything to your A game to kind of invite that. Stick to the issues. We'll help you with sample tweets. And if something comes up where you really don't know how to handle it, or it really becomes so distracting that you need help, reach out to us. We're here for you. Volunteer mentors are here for you too. My hunch is that most of you are going to have a pretty great experience, just like Chase, where you just like jump into this party that's happening on Twitter. And you're gonna love it. But again, like that first step is just getting out there. And thank you for being really candid with these questions too.
Definitely. Someone is wondering, wouldn't it be better to tweet at less progressive Congress people? Are we preaching to the choir with Pelosi? Ash, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah. This is a yes and. And Diane, like, you know, give me your 2 cents here too, but like, the great thing about Twitter is like, just because you tweet at Pelosi, don't mean you can't tweet at someone less progressive. You got everyone. You can like, go ahead and take names. Like, the thing about Pelosi right now is that she, as I mentioned before, like she has the keys to the car to bring Pond Finac to a floor vote. So it's pretty important that we as a movement start to pressure her publicly, like all at once, and like get on the bandwagon in order to let her know that this is important. Like out of all the things that are happening right now, like this is important. I mean, and one representative already answered that call. Representative Johanna Hayes of Connecticut, like already heard that call. So yeah, tweet at Pelosi and tweet at other people too.
Yeah, and also when you tweet at her, so many other people are gonna see it. That's the amazing thing about Twitter. It's like nothing is wasting your time there because it's gonna hit somebody and it's going to impact someone along the way. And it just like has this amplifying effect like no other space. So it's definitely worth our time to do it. All right, I think we are just about at the end of our call here. So I will pass it over to Ash now to close us out.
Thank you. Just again, like a big round of thanks for everyone for joining the call, who's stepped up to the plate when we asked you to write LTEs, to call Andrew Wheeler. Really excited and super thankful that all of you are stepping a little bit outside your comfort zone, maybe, and really getting in and playing the game, because we live in a really, really changed world, and I'm so excited to be working with people who are committed to saving life on Earth. Thank you for joining tonight and joining us on Twitter. So from here, we're going to share the guide, and I think Griselda is going to actually share the guide with you right now in the chat box. Very exciting. Sneak peek before we send it out in tomorrow's email. And if you have any questions, do know that I will be on our main Slack channel, our Mobilize for the Wild Slack channel, this Friday. And the first Friday of every month from noon to 1 Pacific. So if you have any questions, you can hit me up, and volunteer mentors will be in touch with you as well. So with that, I want to also thank Diane, my co-host. I want to thank Chase for hopping on here with us, and for our tech team, and all of you again. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, everyone.